Of course, I am joined once again by xPeke and Jat to take us through exactly what happened in that game and where do we start? Because from 0-2 to 3-2 in, do we see a pattern in the picks and bans? They just talked about how they changed things up after the second game, and for me, it was the Vi ban. They took Vi away from Impaler, and despite the fact Elise and Lee Sin were supposedly his favorite champions, just didn't perform on them.
I really think it was a lot of Super Hot Crew not adapting in a sense. They banned Vayne in all 5 games, and you could definitely make arguments for a lot of other champions and maybe letting Vayne through, because it's not like Candy Panda was struggling in any of these games without Vayne. I just really think if you're playing a 5-game series, not mixing it up is a pretty critical mistake.
We talk about the Mundo, and I think the Mundo should be banned. Vayne, they didn't even want to try versus Vayne, not even one game. They were like really confident that Mundo was worse than Vayne or something, but I think they made a mistake on bans. They were always for the same bans, and they left pretty much the perfect setup for SK every game. So I think that was their mistake.
And game 4, going into it, I was sat there watching it with Dignitas, and they were just like, how the hell have they let Shyvana and Mundo go onto SK Gaming? Because it was just so strong, and as they said, it just destroyed it. But for me, I mean, they talked about Svenskeren being the man of the match. For me, Nif. Nif was the man that started everything off, and then every game. Svenskeren came in, Candy Panda, well, we know what he can do, cleaned up. And it seemed to work very well for me. And Nif, seemingly the front man of SK Gaming now, just credited Fnatic. So you guys clearly helping your, what used to be El Clasico rivals to get back in the LCS.
Well, I'm glad that the practice worked out for them, actually. Helped them win the last game, so helped them qualify. That's really good.
Yeah, I think as soon as Nif got on the hard CC champions as well, when he could play Annie and then Leona in that last game, even though if it was an impromptu pick, it really helped them create things, because in the first 2 games, now that we can actually look back on the whole series, they weren't taking any initiative. And by bringing more aggressive crowd control heavy champions, they were the ones really dictating games 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, and going back to obviously a position where you've been in before, obviously you were up against Royal Club, didn't go so well, but for example, you know, SK Gaming 0-2 down. What sort of mentality, what do you go through as a team? Do you just step back, take a breather, go outside, just take a bit of fresh air, try and get a fresh thought on the game?
I don't even remember being in that situation, like 0-2 down, 0-2 up, and then losing 3 games in a row. I really don't remember being in that situation. I don't know if I have ever been in that situation, but I think that the last game you really have to disconnect from everything. Like you have to be like, okay, let's forget everything. There was not a best of 5. It's just one game. Let's focus on this game and let's win it. But I don't know what was going through Super Hot Crew minds at that point, but they must have been super nervous. In the last game, they must have been like, like this is not gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with Super Hot Crew is we were looking at the little pip monitors on the screen throughout the entire last game. They weren't communicating. And that is something that, if it's going through your minds, the talking is key. We even heard Jez's talk after when Game 3 started. They started talking so much more and communicating an extra bit for their 3 victories. And that was really one of the big keys. And that's something you can't watch on the screen, is how well the team's communicating, but it shows in the play.
Yeah, and finally, of course, we want to talk about when a team does come back from 2-0 down 3-2, historically, it doesn't work out well.
Yeah, it's happened now 4 times in LCS history, if you think about it. And the previous teams that have been doing it is Alternate, but then also MYM and Velocity are the 3 teams that have done it so far. So even though SK is looking towards a bright future, they really have to take into account a struggle to get in, and they got a lot more work ahead of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And xPeke, thank you very much for joining us. It's been great to have your wisdom throughout the day. We'll see how you guys develop through the season, and best of luck beating Cloud9 over in America.
Battle of the
Got to keep the EU side up, of course. So let's send it back.